And then from there, throughout all of your kind of exploration into culture and your identity, one of the things that we love to ask is, what do you think American culture could learn from Samoan culture and the positive aspects of the culture? Because to give some background, which I think we talked about on the first podcast we had, one of the core beliefs that we have here as perspectives is God's placed a unique part of his character in each culture around the world.
Yeah.
And so as we come to know more cultures, know more people groups, find the kingdom aspects in those cultures and adopt those, we are able to become more obedient and more representative of Christ and his character. So what are
Yeah.
some of those characteristics?
Nah, that's perfect, bro. I want to answer that by tying in the two ideas that you presented. One, what can we learn from the culture? And then secondly, just the idea of identity and the influences you get as a kid and where you come from, so to speak. So I got raised to believe at an early age, and I still think it's true now. The immediate engagement for the child, whoever that is, mom, dad, one or the other, both, aunt, uncle, grandmother, Madia, auntie, whoever, like those are the people who speak the world into reality for the child. They don't have real world experience. They cognitively can't comprehend what the world is really like. So you're giving them that in whatever format and fashion you can. And for me, I didn't really have a lot of Christian influences growing up. So there were no real Christian worldviews there. Cultural worldviews, but not a lot of Christian worldviews. Now, go with the train of thought, please. The cultural worldviews and ideologies were influenced by Christian morals and values. So you get this very fractured picture of who Christ is or what the gospel is or what the Bible says. And yet you get it from a very trusted source, one that provides for you, those that care for you, take you where you got to go, pick you up, love on you, feed you, whatever.
Okay.
And you're getting this fractured picture, but what you're getting in return is also what you begin to develop on your own. Is you take the cues, you formulate your identity. Now, if I am created by God and I'm his creation in his image and in his likeness, it would stand to reason that eventually that fractured idea of who he is should be the thing less fractured at some moment in time. What I've recognized in my life is God made a switch and he took away the idolatry of the world and replaced it with love for himself. And through the love that I have for him and what I've learned of him, it's made me love my culture even more, hold it in high regard even more. Not in a perverted sense where it's law in and of itself, but it's a thing of beauty that God has given me to outwork my life on this earth. This is the avenue through which my ideas, my existence, my passions flow through. And so I'm both my parents, genetically, experientially. I didn't grow up with my dad, but I have so many mannerisms like him. And I'm like, yo, this is the creepiest thing. I don't know how we do the same stuff, but it just proves to me more like what you are is a part of me, but that has to be filtered through the lens of Christ. So going to the idea of what the culture can learn from what America can learn from Samoan culture, I think about my father and my biological father and how he is, he grew up on the island, speaks the language, that's his first language, but he is a born-again Christian. And so everything that he has been taught to do culturally, he filters it through a lens of who Christ is. And to me, culture in America, I think, could take cues from recognizing how to subdue your personal passions to the ultimate passion of Christ. That to me is what I've learned from watching my dad and really, honestly, a lot of the people in the culture at large. There's a high regard for and respect for the elderly. There is a high regard and respect for the religious. There's a high regard and respect for how you treat one another. And even though people play different roles, there's still this respect of that person. So much so that you might go out of your way. Like my dad right now is like, hey, I'll see you this weekend. My cousin is having a wedding in Malibu. And so they're like, we'll see you this weekend because of X, Y, and Z in the culture, but also because we want to show her the love of Christ. And I'm like, all right, Dad.
Wow.
So that type of stuff, a lot of words, I'm sorry, but I wanted to try to paint the picture as best I could for people. Because oftentimes we look at people and we try to see them culturally, not racially. But even when we do so, we kind of only do it with a limited, fractured perspective because we just look at their food or we look at their clothing. But to see them in their essence for what they really are, you have to go deeper. But when you put the layer of Christ on that, you can't just say, oh, Christian, I know who you are now, because there's so much more underneath that God gave you culturally. Yeah. So to understand both of them is to understand me, but to recognize the hierarchy of it in that what I was getting as a child, this fractured view of the Lord, has now been brought whole. And what I am culturally is now submitted to that, even though the culture wasn't taken away from me. So